Good day everyone, Sebastian here with Spin Driving School, and in today's video we are going to take a look at bike lanes versus shared lanes. So the basic concept here is to avoid solid white lines. I know it's very confusing and annoying and very confusing, but hopefully after this video it will be a little bit clearer on how to differentiate between shared and actual designated bike lanes. So let's just get into it. I'll show some signs and then we'll get into the videos. So let's go. Okay, so here we are. We have an actual bike lane. So first of all, you have solid white lines. It's going to be pretty narrow versus your lanes where we're going to be driving in. So that's, those are kind of the dead giveaways. And then you have your shared lane with chevrons or some sort of arrows on top. There's a sign. And again, sometimes these things are not very clearly marked or visible, but it is what it is. So there you go. There's a bike lane on the right hand side. It's pretty narrow. You have two solid white lines. And I'm going to be turning in actually into the ICBC parking lot. There's a bit of a broken lane or a dotted lines, and that's where I'm crossing, right? So if you're going to be crossing solid or bike lanes, well, don't cross solid lines. There's a shared lane, there's a sign. You always want to cross on dotted lines. So no solid lines, only dotted lines. Keep that in mind. So this is a shared lane. The lane on the right hand side here is also a shared lane, which will eventually become a bike lane. And sometimes they go back and forth. And you do turn into most shared lanes, unless you have a shared lane that could be an HOV lane or a bus lane, maybe then. But if it's just a shared lane, then it's just another roadway. There you go. So here it merges into a bike lane. So there's a bit of a buffer there. It's kind of confusing. This is why I said this is very confusing and annoying subject, but there's a bit of a buffer there, and the bike lane is actually to the far right side. So it's between the curb and the first white line. And then after this crosswalk, it's going to change back into a shared lane. So then the right lane will become a shared roadway with cyclists. So that car is turning into the right lane, which is totally fine. It's just if there was a cyclist there, you would have to yield and give him the right of way. Okay, again, shared lane. Some shared lanes don't have the chevrons or the arrows on top, which is also annoying and confusing, but it is what it is. You have your bike lane on the right hand side. This one is actually pretty wide in some sections of the road. There's a little bit of green. You have your dotted lines where you can exit or enter in and out. So again, solid white lines do not cross. Once it becomes dotted or broken, as it is here, you can move over. Of course, shoulder check. Make sure that when you move in there, you are yielding to cyclists if there are any, and then you're good to go. Turning right here, this is kind of confusing because this right turn has a bike lane on the right hand side that is very wide. Again, it has a solid white line. I've seen people turn into this bike lane by accident. It happens. But if you know to avoid solid white lines, it should be pretty simple and easy, unless you have poor visibility in case of, if it's dark, nighttime, or if it's raining or both. So now I'm moving back into the quote-unquote shared lane. And I'm turning right. Just regular. Okay, here to the right hand side we have again an actual bike lane. So, and this one also has some cones in it to prevent people from driving through the bike lane, which happens. As further on, it will get a little bit wider. So again, normally bike lanes are going to be pretty thin. You know, you shouldn't be able to fit a car into a bike lane, generally speaking. However, not always. And in most cases, if you can, it's going to be a shared lane. Well, where you're going to have dotted lines on both ends. Right, so that's all a bike lane, all the way down through all these intersections. So you see it's dotted there where you can enter or exit in and out. You have some more cones as it widens a little bit here, so it may be mistaken for a lane, which I've seen people turn from this lane, treating it as an, you know, car lane, which is not. So it happens. But again, you have your solid white line and some more cones. Now, if you're turning right here, you are turning into a shared lane. This is my students hesitating a little bit here, but you see there's a shared lane logo on the bottom of the road. And this one does have the chevrons or the sharrows on top of it. So we're doing a lot of sharing today. And then it just continues on. And sometimes, again, it may or may not change into an actual bike lane or vice versa. Or we'll just merge into a single lane, which might become a shared lane for the remainder of the road. The lane on the right with chevrons is a shared lane. And then it switches into a single bike lane and then into a shared lane again. Pretty much until you get to Hastings from Gilmore now. So bike lane on the right hand side with some green in it where you can enter in and out. It's also kind of like a neutral area, as they call it. So this is a bike lane on Lougheed, which, can you have a bike lane on the highway? I guess so. Very unusual, but it does exist. And then I'm merging over, so I'm going over these dotted or broken lines. And a lot of times you can actually have shared lanes with these painted green areas as well. Downtown and North Vancouver, I've seen them. Here we have a bike lane on Nanaimo Street. So this has been very recently repaved and redone and repainted. So Nanaimo now has a lot of bike lanes, or is pretty much entirely a bike lane, which is super fun. Right, so solid white lines. Don't drive over solid white lines. We're going to skip forward a little bit. And I will be turning from Nanaimo onto Hastings. So I will be going through the bike lane to get into the right turning lane, which this is also going to be a little bit awkward the way it's painted and laid out. Or confusing, rather, maybe not awkward, but confusing. So dotted lines, there's a green neutral zone, going into the right turning lane, yielding to pedestrians, and I'll be turning into the middle lane in this case because that's just what I do in this case. And then the last video, so this Tesla turning left, look how he turns. Avoid doing that. Halfway into the bike lane, avoid solid lines. Not sure how many times I've said it here, but probably too many. So that's it, that's all. I hope that video helps, and I know it's super confusing and very annoying, as I've said numerous times, but be patient, and when you do share the road with cyclists, give them space. Arrivederci.